was that?
Kind of like a plane crash.
It was the reaction on the part of...
Come to us, come to us. Come to us. Come to us. Hey, Beth, what is that? Somebody hit the World Trade Center or the...
It's a trade center.
The World Trade
Center.
Center. There's a fire on the upper floors.
It was just an explosion.
It looked...
Nice car, what is it?
Oh, it's my new Kia Optima. I got it at a Kia September clearance event.
Should have got a Toyota Camry. I got leather seats.
Me too.
V6 engine?
With Sportmatic transmission.
5-year warranty.
Oh, no.
Ha!
10-year. And I got 2,000 cash back, which means I paid $7 grand less than you.
Get amazing deals on 2001 models during Kia's September clearance event. Hurry, event ends October 1st.
Dual front seat mounted side airbags? Got it!
Amazing Blue Star ointment stops itching fast. Athlete's foot, jock itch, psoriasis, ringworm, scalp itch, stops corn and callus growth fast. Winter itch, dry cracked feet. The original. Ask for it.
The Malaysian Prime Minister must be eliminated.
The world needed a hero, but what it got?
Crashed? Jim, just a few moments ago, something believed to be a plane crashed into the south tower of the World Trade Center. I just saw flames inside. You can see the smoke coming out of the tower. We have no idea what it was. It was a tremendous boom just a few moments ago. You can hear around me emergency vehicles heading towards the scene. Now, this could have been an aircraft, or it could have been something internal. It appears to be something coming from the outside due to the nature of the opening on about the 100th floor of the south tower of the World Trade Center. Police vehicles and fire vehicles are zipping by me here. We just have no idea. So to the south of the tower, we see some particles, also some gray smoke. Now the smoke coming out of the opening appears to be black smoke. This would indicate things are burning inside. We have no idea of what happened, but we did hear what sounded like an aircraft, and then a tremendous boom. Now, I don't know whether we could confirm that that was an aircraft or not. David, what did you hear? What would you say you heard? This is our cameraman, Dave Stolick.
Incredible explosion. Very, very loud.
Number 2.
Yeah. This just in, you were looking at obviously a very disturbing live shot there. That is the World Trade Center, and we have unconfirmed reports this morning that a plane has crashed into one of the towers of the World Trade Center. The CNN Center right now is just beginning to work on this story, obviously calling our sources and trying to figure out exactly what happened, but clearly something relatively devastating happening this morning there on the south end of the island of Manhattan. That is, once again, a picture of one of the towers of the World Trade Center.
When you can see these pictures, it's obviously something devastating has happened. And again, unconfirmed report that a plane has crashed into one of the towers there. We are efforting more information on this subject as it becomes available to you.
Right now, we've got Sean Murtaugh. He is a CNN producer on the telephone right now. Sean, what can you tell us about what you know?
This is Sean Murtaugh. I just was standing on the Vice President of Finance.
Sean,
Vice President of Finance for CNN.
Sean, we're on the air right now. What can you tell us about this situation?
Hello?
Yes, Sean, you're on the air right
yes.
now. Go ahead. What can you tell us?
I just witnessed a plane that appeared to be cruising slightly lower than normal altitude over New York City, and it appears to have crashed into, I don't know which tower it is, but it hit directly in the middle of one of the World Trade Center towers.
Sean, what kind of plane? Was it a small plane, a jet?
It was a jet. Looked like a 2-engine jet, maybe a 737.
You're talking about a large passenger commercial jet.
A large passenger commercial jet.
He is on East 12th Street. Tony, can you please tell us what you witnessed?
Yes, I can tell you what happened. I was taking the garbage out of the building when we heard this roaring engines coming. We looked up and there was a plane. Next thing you know, we heard boom. We ran up to the corner and hit right into the World Trade Center.
Tony, can you tell us what kind of an airplane is it?
It had to be a 737 had to hit the World Trade Center. It was a big, big plane.
Okay, and what do you see at this point?
Oh, smoke and screaming and, screaming engines and all the fire engines and police departments are all traveling down that way. Oh, my God almighty, the black smoke all over the place. I hope nobody, there's got to be somebody killed in it and poor people that went to work.
Well, Tony, we don't have any confirmation from any...
I understand that you are over by City Hall, having been reporting on the political developments. Now, you are a good, 8, 9, 10 blocks away from the scene right now?
At least, Jim. We're at Park Row, and of course the World Trade Center is at least 6 or 7 blocks away from us. I do see more flame now.
Okay, you can see, because we cannot see flame. We see lots of black smoke, but we can't see flame. All right, here's Ali, if you have a monitor there, I don't know whether you do or not, but there is another picture in which we do see flame.
Right.
And we see a gaping hole in the exterior of the North Tower of the World Trade Center with smoke. Go ahead.
That's the south side of the North Tower of the World Trade Center. If this indeed was an aircraft, this has not been confirmed, it was heading south over Manhattan. And I did hear some kind of a screech or some kind of a wail before a tremendous boom. I first thought it was a plane. Then I looked at what was going on here and saw that perhaps it was internal rather than external, but we'll have to wait for official confirmation on that. Emergency vehicles, as you know, Jim, are really pouring onto the scene.
Sure, we can hear them in the background as you're reporting to us. Now, once again, what time was it, if you can recall, Ali, when this took place?
We were right into the commercial break, and it was about a minute and a half before we came on, Jim, so work it out.
All right, Ali. Now, I'm told by the control room that we're obviously trying to talk to people in that neighborhood who have been a little closer to it than you are, Ali. Do we have any people to talk to?
Sure, we've got some people here walking away. Excuse me, sir, did you see what happened?
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I saw something like bomb and...
Did you see anything hit the building, or did it come from the building?
That's the bomb, I think so.
Something hit the building?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. All right, we got some other people. They're all rushing away from the site.
We don't blame them, especially that fellow with a little girl in his arms.
Did you see what happened, sir? Did you see what happened? What happened?
Well, I was in the past train, and there was a huge explosion sound. Everyone came out. A large section of the building is blown out, around like the 80th floor.
Was it hit by something, or was it something inside?
It was inside. Because it looked out. Everything was coming out. All the windows were coming out, and all the papers were
What is on the sidewalk?
I didn't see anything.
Was there any people hurt, do you know?
I just ran, and everyone in the past train just ran. I don't know if anyone was hurt, but I assume they were because the windows were all blown out.
All right, thank you.
Ali, you would have to assume a very, very terrible situation if that indeed is the case, because I'm sure there were people up there in that World Trade Center. Now, we have lost, again, our transmitter is on top of the World Trade Center, so we apparently have consequently lost contact with Dick Oliver, but we are on the phone with an eyewitness. Rosa, can you hear me? Is Rosa there?
Hello?
Rosa?
Yes.
This is Jim Ryan here in the studio.
Hi.
What is your last name, please?
Cardona Rivera.
Oh, Cardona. Rosa Cardona Rivera. Tell us what you saw and heard, if you would, please.
Okay, I'm at 99 Hudson Street. I was standing outside, actually, at the side of the building smoking a cigarette. And I hear a plane, and I don't usually see planes in this area. Then all of a sudden I saw it go right into the World Trade Center, to the building.
So
right
you saw a plane crash into the side of the World Trade Center?
Yes, sir.
And
I'm like on the 14th floor, so I was just like looking out, you know, because there's like a fire, something like fire staircase or something, you know, just like a little balcony. And I saw it go right into the building, and I was like, oh my God, you know. And it was a big plane. It wasn't, you know, a little plane. It was fairly big.
How big, can you tell us? Give us an idea.
I don't know. I would say it was like a plane that I board on to go, well.
We are now going to go to Mary Corza on the telephone, who is another eyewitness. Mary, can you tell us what you saw? Mary? Mary, are you there?
I am here.
Mary, can you please tell us what you saw and where you are?
I'm at 14th Street and 5th Avenue, and we saw a plane flying low overhead, which caught all of our attention. We looked up. It was making a beeline to the World Trade Center. It was very low, extremely low. Not a big plane like an airliner, but not a tiny propeller plane either. A small jet plane.
We can now see flames coming from the building. It appeared to you that the airplane was directly aimed at the World Trade Center?
It did appear that way to many of us that were here on the ground, yes.
Okay.
And when it hit, there was the big boom, a big cloud of smoke, some flames, and then mostly smoke. It just started flaming now.
Have you witnessed any people coming out of the building? Have they been able to tell you anything at this point?
No, I'm all the way up on 14th Street, so I can't see the building down below. It was only maybe a minute or two before you could hear sirens coming, so they did alert people right away, obviously, but you probably have a better fix on how many floors were damaged. It looks like quite a few floors.
Yeah, from what we're looking at, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, I would say 15 to 18 stories, and there is debris falling off that building as we speak.
You did see shattered glass raining down after it hit, and, like I said, a big cloud of smoke. But you couldn't tell much more from 14th Street.
Now, we had an earlier eyewitness that told us he thought it appeared to be a 737. What you saw was a small, perhaps twin-engine airplane?
No, not a twin-engine. It was a jet of medium to smallish proportions. Not a big airliner, though.
Okay. Okay, so it appeared to be you heard this sound. I'm just trying to understand what happened. You heard a sound. That's what compelled you to look up into the sky.
Yeah, you could hear a jet coming overhead, and it sounded low, so many of us looked up to see what was, because it sounded so close. We all looked up.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it didn't look like it was swerving or out of control. It was going steadily lower. It was, definitely going steadily lower, but it wasn't dropping like nose first or anything that would make you think that the plane was in trouble.
Right. Which then, of course, raises the question exactly what was that airplane doing and how did this occur?
Right,
but the airplane did not appear to be in trouble to you.
I don't know enough about airplanes to know what it should look like, but it wasn't nose down or it wasn't swerving up and down or left and right. It was making a straight, steady decline towards the World Trade Center.
Mary, I'm hearing what sounds to be an awful lot of people that are either crying or sobbing or something in the background.
That's my baby wondering why I'm still standing here. But there are a lot of us who are shaking or with tears coming down our faces because it's mind-boggling to think about how many people are up there who, aren't anymore.
Exactly. And Mary, again, thank you.
Okay, Steve, hang with us. We're going to go to another eyewitness, Sandra Rodriguez. Sandra, are you there? Sandra, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
This is Steve Bartlestein, Eyewitness News. Can you tell us what you saw?
Okay, I'm over here in the South Bronx, and I was up on the roof, and the plane came right over my roof. And it was up at a pretty good height, like it was a normal flight. And I kind of thought to myself, oh, it's probably going to JFK, because we could see them landing at LaGuardia. It came over. It was a small passenger plane, like about maybe 50 people could fit in it.
Okay.
A small one, and definitely not a Cessna. And it just kept on going. And the first thing I thought of is it's like a drunk driver. It just kept on going and realized what was going on and tried to turn to the left. And
wow.
It didn't make it. It went right into the World Trade Center.
Sandra, Olivia talked earlier about it. It was very, very loud as it went over her. That could possibly be reverb in the city. You're used to planes going over your apartment, I would imagine, in the South Bronx. Did it sound similar or dissimilar?
Similar. It sounded normal.
Did it?
Yeah, it sounded very normal. It sounded at the normal sound at the height that it was. And it looked like a normal plane going over the city, and then all of a sudden it was like a sudden try to turn to the left, and it didn't make it. It just went right into the World Trade Center.
It's interesting.
Slammed right into it.
Did you see it actually make contact with the building?
Yes, I did.
Now, the fact that you would watch a plane like that, was there something unusual that made you watch the course of a plane?
Yeah, because usually planes coming into LaGuardia, they don't fly this course. It was flying from the Westchester direction into Manhattan, that direction. And anything going into LaGuardia, they usually do like a circle pattern, or you'll see them coming in from like around New Jersey or over Manhattan itself.
You're
and
looking at a
it just
new...
didn't look right.
Okay, let me put one more. You're looking kind of at one of our newer pictures of the buildings. You can see the smoke very, very dense. This perhaps is the north side. I can't tell from looking. Black smoke. Let's go to. We've got another eyewitness on the phone. Is it Winston Campbell?
It's Winston
Mitchell. Winston, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Winston, you're a photographer?
Yeah, I work for Transit News.
Okay, can you tell us what you saw, Winston?
Yeah, I'm sitting in the car, and I heard this plane overhead, and then all of a sudden I thought it sounded kind of louder. Then I looked up, and all of a sudden it smashed right dead into the center of the World Trade Center. Big flash of flame, fire coming out from all over. Then all the bricks is a huge hole right now. It almost looked like the plane probably went through. I'm not sure.
Winston, can you see? Are you on the north side there where the plane made contact?
Yes, I am.
Now, when you say a huge hole, one of our earlier witnesses, Libby Clark, said not much of the plane came down off the building. Much of it went
totally
right
into the building.
It's in the building, that from what you can see.
Right.
Now, can you see if there's a lot of debris downstairs, Winston?
No, because it looked like it inverted. With the impact, everything went inside the building.
Inside.
The only thing that came out was a little bit of the outside awning. But I'd say the hole is, let me just get a better look right now.
Okay, go ahead. We'll wait.
I'd say the hole takes about, let's say 6, 7 floors to take it out.
Oh, God. There's another one.
Oh,
my goodness. There's another
just a
one.
moment. We got an explosion inside.
Oh, my goodness.
Now
it's obvious, I think.
Okay.
There's a second plane just crashed into the World Trade Center.
Winston on pause there for just a moment.
The whole building just exploded some more. The whole top part.
Okay.
The building's still intact. People are running up the streets. Am I still connected?
Winston, this would support probably what Libby and you both said, that perhaps the fuselage was in the building that would cause a second explosion such as that.
Well, that's what just happened then.
That certainly.
Yeah, people are running up.
We're getting word that perhaps.
Okay, hold on. The people here everybody's panicking.
All right, Winston, Winston, let me put Winston on hold for just a moment.
Okay, I don't know how much longer we're staying. I'm inside of a diner right now.
Well, Winston, you know what? If you could give us a call back, I just don't want to panic here on the air. Let's just take some of our pictures from News Chopper 7. Now, one of our producers said perhaps a second plane was involved, and let's not even speculate to that point, but at least put it out there that perhaps that may have happened. The second explosion would certainly back the theory from a couple of eyewitnesses that the plane fuselage perhaps stayed in those upper buildings. Now, if you look at the second building, there are two, that both twin towers now are on fire. Now, this was not the case, am I correct? A couple of moments ago. This is the second twin tower now on fire, and we're going to check on the second flight if perhaps that had happened. This all began at about 8:48 this morning. Again, what we know, in case you're just joining us, a small plane, not a Cessna type or 5 or 6 seater, but instead perhaps a passenger flight, ran into the north side of the World Trade Center. As you can see, the second explosion that you're looking at now in the second twin tower, it has spread much debris, much more debris than the first explosion or the first accident. Is Winston still on the line with us? Okay, he's not there, but do we have, I'll just talk to my producer, do we have an eyewitness that perhaps sees better than we do from these pictures? Again, you can see that there is debris falling off. Okay, we actually have an Eyewitness News reporter, Dr. Jay Adlersberg, who was downtown at the time, and he is on the phone with us live. Dr. Jay, what can you tell us?
Hello, Steve. I'm actually uptown at 86th and Riverside. I can see the World Trade Center from about half the building up to the top. And about 5 minutes ago, as I was watching the smoke, a small plane, it looked like a propeller plane, came in from the west, and about 20 or 25 stories below the top of the center, it disappeared for a second and then exploded behind a water tower, so I couldn't tell whether it hit the building or not, but it was very visible that a plane had come in at a low altitude and appeared to crash into the World Trade Center.
Dr. J, we're going to take a look at videotape just moments ago of the second plane hitting the World Trade Center. That is spectacular pictures. I don't know if you could see the plane, and that too was a passenger plane, if perhaps some type of navigating system or some type of electronics would have put two planes into the World Trade Center within, it looks like, about 18 minutes of each other. You want to go to, we have another copy. There's the second plane, another passenger plane hitting the World Trade Center. These pictures are frightening indeed. These are just minutes between each other. So naturally, you will guess and you will speculate and perhaps ask the question, if some type of navigating equipment is awry, that two commuter planes would run into the World Trade Centers at the same time.
Another witness, Janice Huff, on the telephone. I'm not sure if it's our Janice Huff, but she apparently was a witness to the second explosion.
You saw this? Where are you?
No. Listen, I'm watching TV right now.
Yes.
Yeah. And, I can see the pictures that we have of the building, the first building, the one with the tower on the top. And as I'm watching it and you're talking, I see a plane flying behind the other tower. And I see it getting closer and closer to the building, and I'm thinking, is that a plane? And it was. And all of a sudden, I see this explosion in the other tower. So there was another plane.
So there was another plane with the second explosion.
From what I am looking at on television, from the angle that I was looking.
Here's a replay right here, I believe.
When I was watching looking at the first tower, I noticed that there was a small plane coming around the side of the building. You see it there on the right?
I see it. I see
so
it.
It's coming down
see it
that
right there.
There it is, right there.
I see it.
And then it goes boom, right there. Watch.
That's
there it is.
You're absolutely right.
Oh my goodness.
So I don't know if it's a helicopter or a plane, but it was certainly flying, and it went right into the building.
It was a plane.
Can we show that again, please? I clearly did not notice that the first time.
Right.
I think we need to take a look at that again. Obviously, what we are looking at are the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in flames. We know nothing yet about the number of people, what has exactly happened there. We can only tell you what we have witnessed and what eyewitnesses have told us. Now, here we're going to look at this tape again. Here it comes.
Say that we have an eyewitness who said it was a large plane that crashed first. And then as we were watching the live picture here in the studio, we saw a plane crash into the other tower of the World Trade Center. And again, let's just to be sure, there it is. There it is. The plane went right through the other tower of the World Trade Center.
That is a very hard thing to watch.
And clearly untold carnage must be the result of those suicide terrorist activities.
That was a large commercial jet.
The gentleman, Jim Friedel, the gentleman from Hoboken who was watching, said the first one looked to him like a 727.
Well, look at the wingspan, the swath it cut through the towers.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of speculation, no doubt. And for years, we have been talking about security from terrorists here in this major city. It makes you wonder how, if it indeed were two planes, we did see one, how did they manage to get into the area and to
you
just
wonder,
hit the plane like that?
These are all the things that
buildings.
are going to have to be answered. How could two large planes just that quickly get out of control from our local
presumably commercial aircraft. And now we can't speak to the first one, but that second aircraft that went through looked like a large twin engine or three engine jet. Those are simply not around for private aviation.
Yeah, that's not your Piper Cub.
No, it is not.
That's obviously designed to do considerable damage to those buildings on this day when we're holding a primary election in New York City.
Now, I would imagine...
Ollie?
Jim, what you're saying, could be a drone aircraft. That's an aircraft that's guided electronically to its target without having a pilot. Now that is a possibility as well. In the meantime, I can tell you that flames are shooting out of both towers now. The heaviest being on the south tower, the northeast corner of the south tower of the World Trade Center, but there's a considerable blaze going on the north tower as well.
Yeah, I wonder if there's any way of finding out exactly what is located on those upper floors. You'd like to just cross your fingers and pray to God that maybe there weren't a lot of people up there at that time.
State office buildings and, of course, lots of commercial office buildings on those spaces as well. I know during the last terrorist attack on the World Trade Center, my son was in the building, and he told stories of groping down through these staircases for some 50 floors before he, thank God, got out safely.
In fact, the governor has an office in the World Trade Center as well. There is one thing. After the bombing of the World Trade Center in the 90s, I do know that there were major efforts to have disaster drills, to have a preparedness plan in the event of an awful tragedy like this. But one has to wonder how, with two gigantic skyscrapers burning, the fire department and emergency services can handle both in that confined space without a tremendous
no matter how much you set in place, how much you try to prepare for, until it...
And then you see the explosion.
Right there. Unbelievable.
Let us tell you that all of the airports in the New York City metropolitan area are closed down right now. Subway lines 1, 2, 3, and 9 have all been, the service has been, it's been cut off for the moment. And we will continue to bring you up to date on what is going on. And we actually, you know, are hoping we'll be able to talk to somebody from the mayor's office in just a few minutes to see what they might know.
Okay, right now, let's, as you can see, the chopper force had to back off. Let's go back to April LaMonica up top. April?
Okay, what we can tell you right now from up here in Chopper 4, we cannot get any closer than about 5 miles to the scene because we need to keep this far back. But you can see the black smoke as far as we are away. We can zoom in here for you. First, you saw the smoke from the one tower. Then we witnessed an explosion on the other tower. Now, we think that there was a plane that actually headed into that second tower at some point, and that's what caused that second explosion. We are unable to get close enough to actually show you or tell you what's going on at the ground, but an unbelievable sight here from above the Hudson River at this vantage point. Back to you.
Something go into the other building, because from where I am, I can see the World Trade Center. I run downstairs and I see on the news that it looks like another fighter jet is what it looks like. And from my house, I can see all the smoke that's into Dyker Heights. I can see all of that. It's ridiculous. I can't believe all of this is happening, honestly.
You say you're in Dyker Heights,
Yes.
Lonnie?
Yes.
Okay. And could you hear the blast from where you were?
No, I couldn't hear the blast, but I saw something, and it didn't look pretty. Exactly how I can't explain it in any other way. I'm in shock right now.
All right, Lonnie. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Obviously visible but not audible from way out in Dyker Heights.
Hey, Jim?
Yes, Ollie.
They appear to be getting water on this fire. If you can see the south tower, the black smoke is getting progressively lighter. This indicates steam, which indicates that fire authorities are getting water on the flames. In the meantime, flames are still spitting out from both towers. Now, while the whatever hit the building crashed on the north side of the north tower, we see flames coming out of the east side, facing Queens and Brooklyn, if you will. The flames on the south tower, which appear to be getting lesser and lesser, is where the smoke is getting progressively lighter and lighter, indicating that the fire officials are getting closer to putting this fire out.
All right, Ollie, thank you. We are now told that the FBI had been investigating a plane hijacking before these crashes took place. So there is the possibility that perhaps one or more planes were hijacked out of one of the local airports and then taken and directly flown into the World Trade Center, smashing the buildings themselves, and Lord knows what carnage took place inside.
Jim, can you put out a note, or maybe I will myself? People have been coming up to me to try to reach their family and friends and relatives to tell them that they're okay. We ought to put it out that no one that we know of was hurt on the ground or in any place around the building, that this outrage appears to be concentrated on the buildings themselves. So anybody who has a relative or a friend in Lower Manhattan, they're not likely to have been affected physically by what happened here.
All right. Again, you're looking at a split screen, two different shots of the World Trade Center. Dave, you want to say something?
I would wonder at this point, given what's happened now, what you just mentioned about the FBI, the fact that it is now seemingly two planes, if the military or someone is going to scramble and try and protect the airspace around the southern tip of Manhattan, and indeed what the situation is out at the airports right now as well.
Funny, you should, not funny, but apropos, we are now given word that all three area airports are closed. So no activity whatsoever at LaGuardia, at Kennedy, or at Newark airports. Also, there is no subway service right now on the 1, 2, 3, 9, N, and R lines. So there is no subway service in and around the World Trade Center, and all three airports have closed. Just to bring you up to date, that as a result, I think we can say with a fair amount of certainty right now, two planes, large, apparently commercial jets, deliberately crashed into first one tower of the World Trade Center, then the other, just scant minutes apart. You're looking at live pictures now of the tops, two split-screen pictures of the tops of the World Trade Center, one from a fixed camera, one from our own Chopper 5, and obviously that is in the middle of the work day, and perhaps there is some significance that it is a primary election day, I don't know, but that is in the middle of a work day. All those floors on both towers of the World Trade Center are certain to have been occupied, and it doesn't look very promising for anybody who was caught in that terrible, terrible
I'm sure
terrorist
Jim,
act.
officials would also want to say.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Right ahead.
You just talking to me. Yes,
I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
They're talking to me in my ear, but you made your point.
If there is anyone who is heading into the city for any reason, if it's not an emergency, stay away from the city. Stay away from the downtown area.
By all means. Perhaps we can talk to Kai Simonson. Kai, can you hear me? All right, that's a live picture from Kai Simonson. I'll try once again. We've had communications difficulties. I'll say once again because our part of our communications setup is on the top of that World Trade Center building, and that was knocked out shortly after the first plane crashed into the first building. But Kai, can you hear me at all? Obviously, Kai having some communications problems.
Here.
Yes, Ollie?
I must tell you that small pieces, well, they look small from here, but they're probably much larger than I believe, are falling from the scene of the site of the two. There goes a piece. So the authorities are clearing the area around. We still have pieces of debris coming down. Not a lot, but every now and every few moments, another piece of debris, looks like aluminum siding, comes flying down from the scene of the two fires.
Boy, again, the tower on the right of your screen seems to be fire seems to be dying down a little bit, but the fire to the left of your screen still heavy, thick black smoke spewing out. We're just told now, we received words that the Lincoln Tunnel and the Holland Tunnel are both closed. So, just as an aftermath of this terrorist act, terrible terrorist act, the ones I suppose we feared for the longest time, there is no service in or out of any of the airports. The Lincoln and the Holland tunnels are both closed. There is no subway service at all through downtown Manhattan. The 1, 2, 3, 9, N, R, any plane that goes near, any train rather, that goes near the World Trade Center has been discontinued. That as a result of what you see right there. Planes, 2 of them, one just minutes apart, one into one tower of the World Trade Center, the other into the other tower, causing devastation on the top floors of those buildings.
It wouldn't surprise me, Jim, even though right now we just have a tentative shutdown of the subway system, if indeed the mayor or authorities shut down transit, just given the fact that there may be threats or a potential problem securing all of the major thoroughfares and tunnels throughout the city, simply out of precaution. I would imagine that they might consider doing that over the next short term.
If there were 2, there may be more. And you couldn't be too careful at this point. I understand we have another eyewitness to the catastrophe. Shaniqua, are you there?
Yes.
Can you tell me what you saw and heard, please?
Okay, my grandmother's friend, she came upstairs and told us that they was bombing the Twin Towers. So me and my grandfather, we looked out the window and we actually saw the airplane crash into the second tower.
Vivikwa, could you do me a favor, please? Could you turn your television, set the sound down?
Okay.
Maybe we're having trouble hearing you. Perhaps that's the cause.
Is that good enough?
Tell us again, if you would. I'm not sure we quite hear you well enough.
Okay, my grandmother's friend, she came upstairs and she was telling us how they was bombing the tower. So me and my grandfather decided to look out the window and actually saw the second plane crash into the second tower. We thought it was an airplane, but we not, you know, because we wasn't too actually sure what type of airplane it was, but we know it was an airplane. And we heard the explosion and saw the fire.
Right. All right, we're having trouble communicating with Vivikwa Cohen, an eyewitness, but again, FBI in Washington is reporting that they have had reports of planes hijacked before the crashes took place. So one would suspect, one would believe that the FBI was investigating hijacked planes when those planes were diverted smack into the World Trade Center, both towers. I'm told also that Mayor Giuliani is preparing to hold a news conference about the disaster. As soon as that happens, of course, we will bring it to you live. Dave?
We might imagine, given that it's primary day, that the governor himself may also be in New York City on this date. Given the importance of the day municipally.
Well, if he isn't, I'm sure he's on his way.
One would hope that
absolutely
that he's not anywhere near that World Trade Center office. Ollie, anything new from your vantage point?
No, Jim, except that emergency vehicles are finding it difficult to get through, not only because of the crowds, but because of the pileup of emergency vehicles. As you know, we're at the south end of City Hall Park, and everything is pretty much frozen here, even though I have not seen ambulances come out of the scene. I've seen them go in. Hopefully that's a sign that there are not too many casualties as a result of this.
Thank you, Ollie.
Jim, do we have word, have they evacuated other landmark buildings like the Empire State Building, the Statue of Liberty, etc.? Do we know?
We have no word on that yet.
It just gives you such a horrible feeling that the city is under siege, which may not be true. This is enough with the World Trade Center, but it gives you such a helpless feeling.
Oh, yeah, there's not much you can do at this point.
You also wonder if this is indeed a hijacking, if these planes were taken over, if the people who took over these planes actually were trained pilots and did the flying into these buildings themselves, or again forced these pilots to head on in.
That it would be an unusual pilot who would do that.
Exactly.
But I'm told we have another eyewitness, Tom O'Hara, on the phone. Tom, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Can you tell me what you heard and saw, please?
Actually, we were in our office building on 36th Street, and I went up to the penthouse where you have a straight downtown view. We saw the northwest tower on fire, and we saw either a slow-moving airplane go down, wrap around the tower, and then slam into the south tower in a ball of flames.
And could, from 36th Street, could you hear what was going on?
I couldn't hear, but we have a straight-on shot completely downtown of all of the goings-on the two buildings.
All right, Tom, thank you very much. So from 36th Street, looking across the tops of buildings, you can see it very clearly. We're told now that, in response to your point, Dave, that the city has shut down every place in and out of Manhattan. All the bridges, all the tunnels are closed. And again, all 3 airports are closed. So as a result of this double-barreled terrorist attack on the World Trade Center, the city has shut down the Holland Tunnel, the Lincoln Tunnel, the George Washington Bridge. Every way in and out of Manhattan is closed. And I presume that would be from, I'm sorry, and the East River crossings as well.
We are also told that the phone service in the building, we are having a problem with the phone service. The phones don't work. Joey was saying the cell phones, you can't get out on the cell phones as well. Yes.
This would be a good time to say, by the way, for those who are using the emergency services number 911 to somehow call and check on relatives or friends, this is the time, most importantly, when that line needs to be kept open for the true emergencies which are taking place in other parts of the city and indeed down on the southern tip of Manhattan at this hour.
Good thought. Again, all this as a consequence of what you see right there. Recapping for you shortly before 9 o'clock and then shortly before after 9 o'clock, a plane apparently deliberately crashed into the upper floors of first one tower of the World Trade Center, then, as we were watching in horror, another tower of the World Trade Center. There you see the aftermath. And we have reports right now that the President of the United States, of course this terrorist act not directed on us specifically here in New York City, but at the country. We are told that the President of the United States is preparing to go before the nation and comment on this disaster. You look the right side of your screen, the first tower of the World Trade Center seems slightly less engulfed in flames than the one on the left. That because that smoke seems to be much darker, indicating that the fire would be much more active. And I'm told that we have another eyewitness, Dan Lee. Are you there?
Yeah.
Dan, can you tell me what you heard and saw?
Yes, I was crossing 6th Avenue at West 4th Street, and there was a terrific noise overhead of a jet crossing over, which I noticed because it was incredibly irritating that it was that loud directly over Manhattan. And as I'm watching this jet, thinking, why is it so low? I see that it's heading right for the Trade Center, and sure enough, it hit the World Trade Center and completely disappeared into the building. I saw no debris falling, really. It just vanished right into the building.
Were there many people around you when it happened, Dan?
There were several people in the crosswalk at 6th Avenue and West 4th, yes.
What was their reaction?
We all just froze and stood in the middle of the street in disbelief watching, and traffic stopped because we were in the way. And we just stood there for quite some time in complete disbelief of what we had just seen.
Where were you when the second blast took place?
I had managed at that point to walk the half block home, and I was watching the coverage on television, and that's when I saw the live picture of the second blast.
All right, Dan, thank you very much for giving us your thoughts. Here now, the President of the United States on this disaster.
Terrorist attack on our country. I have spoken to the Vice President, to the Governor of New York, to the Director of the FBI, and have ordered that the full resources of the federal government go to help the victims and their families, and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act. Terrorism against our nation will not stand. And now, if you join me in a moment of silence. May God bless the victims, their families, and America. Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. President, before a moment of silence for the victims of this terrorist act, telling the nation that the full resources of the government would be brought to bear on helping the victims and on finding out who precisely is responsible for this terrible, terrible attack on our country. Right there you see the aftermath, the World Trade Center towers, smoke billowing out of the upper floors, all those floors, I'm sure, fully occupied. The rescue attempts going forward as much as is possible, given the high floors of the tallest buildings in Manhattan, and given the number of people there. Dave?
Jim, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you may be able to provide some historical perspective. How long have the Twin Towers been up, and once again, the floor height, the number of floors, I think?
Yeah, off the top of my head, somewhere in the 60s, as I recall, and it goes up, what, 102 floors or so, up to the Windows on the World restaurant there.
And if we remember from the last bombing, it took months and months and months before that structure was certified sound again and re-inhabited by...
in from the bottom.
Right, that was a bombing from the parking garage level of the tower.
That is something that, it's hard to watch this, but it's more bearable because I remember that particular bombing, and I was on the air all morning and all afternoon with that one, is that you saw the people that were being brought out on stretchers. You actually saw bodies and victims. And this, we're not seeing that yet, and we're hoping and praying that there are very, very few injuries. But just looking at this, it just, as you say, Jim, the carnage is just...
what we're looking at is just the long picture.
It would appear, Jim, as if there's more smoke coming from the ground.
And we just have another, we have, yes, things have fallen to the ground and are burning. And we have another announcement now that you might have expected, and that is the Empire State Building is being evacuated. You're making the point, Lynn, that we are only seeing the long picture, if you will. We are not able to see, perhaps thankfully, inside those buildings and see what kind of devastation has been caused. We're told we have a pilot on the line, Richard Kornicek. Are you there, Richard?
Yes, I am.
Richard, were you up in the air when this took place?
No, I wasn't, but we fly alongside those buildings regularly on what they call the VFR corridor that goes up and down the Hudson River.
And did you see the attacks this morning?
Yes, I did.
What was your vantage point, and what did you hear and see, if you would?
Well, it appears that to fly an airplane right next to the Empire State Building or the World Trade Center, it's perfectly legal. You can do it under what they call VFR rules. And where those airliners apparently came from, it's really hard to say. And they may not have even been talking to the controllers. It's possible that they were hijacked either, quite a distance away, or no one knows where they actually came from. But the ability to fly right next to the World Trade Center has always been available to any pilot who wanted to exercise that privilege.
Excuse me, I just happen to live on the west side, and there's a regular route into LaGuardia that comes right up the Hudson River and then sort of banks right into LaGuardia. So it would not be unusual then to see planes flying near the World Trade Center, and as you say, Richard, it's not unusual. But these pilots must not have had any contact with the traffic control people or the FAA at all. Is that true?
Apparently not, because we've heard nothing contact with them. the airliners that come into LaGuardia, when they're over the in that higher corridor, they're at maybe 2,000, 2,500 feet. But you are also allowed to go down below 1,000 feet along that corridor. And one of the things they may have done is shut off on the airplanes. They have what they call transponders, which allow the controllers to identify particularly the aircraft. And they may have shut them off so the controllers could not actually see the airplane very well.
I see.
They would only have what they call a primary target, where it would be very difficult to track them. They'd have to go back and look at their tapes to see exactly where they came from.
Richard, this is Lynn Brown sitting here with Jim Ryan. You are saying that you are allowed to fly a plane that close to these buildings?
Yes.
Any particular type of plane? I mean, is a plane that big flying next to this type of building, wouldn't that seem a little out of the ordinary?
That would be unusual because the airliners are all required to be on IFR flight plans, and they would not normally be allowed to fly that low. However, it doesn't mean that someone could, that would be absolutely unusual for a plane to, large planes to fly up and down the Hudson. But airliners routinely do not do that.
Richard, would you just stand by 1 second, please? I just want to tell the folks one thing, and that is the city fire department has now issued a request to all the members of the department, all firefighters, whether you're on your day off or whether you're on vacation. They're asking that you return to duty, that you go to your firehouse and report for duty. So the city is asking all firefighters, whether you're on vacation or whether you're on your day off or whatever, to return to your firehouse and report for duty. I'm sorry, Richard, are you still there?
Yeah.
Dave's got a question for you.
Richard, can you do me a favor and take us through exactly what happens as a plane takes off and circulates around that area? What contact they would typically have with the FAA or the tower at LaGuardia, Kennedy, or Newark? And exactly what would appear on a radar screen to those tracking aircraft in the area?
Let's say if you were taking off in a relatively small plane, say a twin-engine plane or a private aircraft, and you were coming in from the south, which apparently these came from. If they have specific areas, if you're coming in, let's say you were 20 miles out, there's no requirement that you be in radar contact with anyone or radio.
Now, Richard, I'm going to jump in. What if it were a larger aircraft? Because at least on that second hit to us, it appeared as if that was at least a twin-engine jet. What if you're a commercial aircraft?
Even a commercial aircraft is not required to always be on an instrument flight plan. They could take off what they call VFR flight rules, come up the New Jersey coast, and when they got within, say, 10 miles of New York City, they'd have to drop down below 1,600 feet. And VFR, they'd have to then drop down when they got to the Verrazano Bridge. They'd have to be below 1,100 feet.
My question is this. Would folks who are manning a tower, would personnel at the airports early on or relatively early on spot something alarming, that something that big was below a certain altitude or near one of these skyscrapers?
No, they wouldn't. If they came up from the south and they came up below those altitudes, even if they had their altitude reporting on, since they're below the level of where they control the airplanes, they wouldn't pay it any attention. They wouldn't have to, and normally it's not done. And realize that this is an extraordinary circumstance where apparently these planes appear to have been hijacked in some way or taken the control over them, and it basically must have been a suicide mission. Most of these aircraft accidents, when you look at them, most pilots can tell what really happened very quickly, even though the reports take a long time to come out. But the controllers, let's say the controllers that are actually controlling the airliners.
Richard, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you. I apologize to you, Richard, but we have another development. Thank you very much for your assistance. I appreciate it. Dick Oliver?
Yes, Jim.
Can you
hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Jim, I can tell you now that the police for the last several minutes have been evacuating all of lower Manhattan. I'm standing at the foot of City Hall Park, and as I see people being screaming out of the lower Manhattan area, I'm looking down Broadway, and they're encouraged, move, please, please move. And they're moving them north towards the up Broadway and towards the Brooklyn Bridge. So virtually all of lower Manhattan is being evacuated at this time. All people except for emergency personnel are being asked to leave the area.
Ali, that may tie in with another, I must emphasize, unconfirmed report that we have that there is yet another plane on its way. So, Lord knows we hope that is not the case, but we do have an unconfirmed report that another plane might be on its way. We have an eyewitness from our own staff. Hey, kid, how you doing?
Hi, Jim. I was in my apartment. I live on the 36th floor at 59th Street in Columbus, and I have a clear view of downtown, and I can see the towers. And I was in my living room. I was getting dressed to rush in here, and I saw one tower. It had all the smoke. And then I saw another plane that was really close, and it went behind, and you can see it doing a turn. It was turning its wings, and it went around, and then I saw it go into the other tower, and I saw a big pool of flames just come out, and there was a big explosion. I didn't hear anything, so I'm at 59th Street, but you could see it, and there were flames, and there was so much smoke, and you can see that it was an entire different building. But I saw it was a different plane.
So two different planes?
Absolutely.
Now, when you left your building, you went downstairs to come in here. What kind of a reaction did you encounter on the streets? Were people aware of it? Were people frightened by it?
Absolutely, people are aware of it. I mean, just walking here, I was hearing people saying, you know, it was one plane, it was two planes, and everyone was hearing sirens. And people, I know people were trying to use their cell phones. No one could get a cell out. And my taxi driver was talking about it. And he had the radio up, and he was, when we would stop, he would put his window down and tell the other guy. So everybody knows about it, I think, at this point, and they're talking about it.
We just got word that from the Associated Press that it's pretty sure now that one of those...
Well, it sounds to me like we...
Jane, we're just getting a report that there's been an attack on the Pentagon. This is the Pentagon. This is from the network. This is the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia.
These are pictures that have just come in to us here at News Channel 4. You are looking at live pictures of what appears to be an attack on the Pentagon. We can tell you nothing more than what you were looking at. This is approximately an hour ago that we had one airplane crash into the northern of the World Trade Center towers, and about 18 minutes later, another airplane crashed into the southern of the towers, and now we have this.
We also hear that the first plane that hit the World Trade Center was apparently hijacked after takeoff from Boston. It means there's a very good possibility that that plane did have some passengers on board.
Huge flames, huge flames.
Deb, I'm going to have to interrupt you, I'm afraid, but the dimensions of this catastrophe are growing. We are told now that this is not quite confirmed yet, but we are told fairly reliably that a plane has crashed into the Pentagon in Washington. So not only have we had a terrible catastrophe here in New York, where planes crashed into both towers of the World Trade Center, but we are told now that a plane has crashed into the military complex in Washington, the Pentagon, which of course houses the nerve center of all the military operations of this country. So a 1, 2, 3 attack on the United States apparently today, 2 here in New York and 1 in Washington at the Pentagon. There you see a live picture from Washington. We would have to guess that that smoke is emanating from the Pentagon in the background. So the military nerve center of this country has been attacked by terrorists. And because of that, we are told that the White House has now been evacuated.
Explosions at the World Trade Center here in New York, where 2 planes slammed into the buildings.
I would imagine. Okay, that's the picture in Washington. So now we can say with certainty that there have been at least 3 attacks on visible symbols of our country, 2 here in New York and 1 in Washington. You're looking at 2 different views of the World Trade Center, where planes, first one tower and then another plane, a larger plane, into the other tower, crashed just before and after 9 o'clock, and then just moments ago, a third plane crashed into the Pentagon, which, as you know, houses the nerve center of our military might, and that certainly is an unprecedented attack upon this country. One would presume by suicidal terrorists, and I imagine we will find out soon enough who staged this attack and what will be done about it.
You know, we're getting something on the wire also about the stock exchange, which planned to open this morning at 10, is delayed a half an hour. So we've got developments all over the place. And I don't know about your computers now. I'm starting to have a problem with my computer. It is just randomly jumping from one story to the other.
Given going forward, as there are, I think, stories are incoming on a very rapid basis. So that would be the.
Given what we're seeing at this point, I would imagine major buildings in major cities, from the Sears Tower in Chicago to other symbols, as you mentioned, Jim, in Washington and Boston, I would imagine are all going to be on high alert, if not evacuated in Washington.
The West Wing of the White House and the Capitol building have both been evacuated.
Okay, so in Washington, just to recap now, on this terrible, terrible day, here in New York, you happen to be looking at a picture in Washington, so we'll start with that. That's in Washington, a plane has struck the Pentagon in Washington, and that, of course, houses our military nerve center, and that has taken place, and the Pentagon now obviously being evacuated. The West Wing of the White House is being evacuated, and here in New York, 2 terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center. A plane deliberately smashed into the upper floors, first of one tower, and then several minutes later, the other tower. 2 large planes. We understand the second one, or the first one rather, was hijacked from Boston and presumably loaded with passengers. So as a consequence of these terrorist attacks here in New York, we have the island of Manhattan virtually isolated. You cannot get in or out of Manhattan by any bridge or any tunnel, and any subway train that goes anywhere near the World Trade Center is not running. All right, Dick Oliver was fairly close to the scene when it happened. He was reporting on what is now an afterthought to this day, the primary election, down at City Hall when the blasts took place. Ollie? I don't know if Ollie is, again, our part of our television operation is on top of the World Trade Center, so we lost the picture. Yes, you're coming to us by phone. Ollie?
Yeah, Jim, I hear you now. I'm down by the Brooklyn Bridge now, where people are streaming over the bridge, heading towards Brooklyn, obviously. The police are encouraging people to get out of lower Manhattan. So that's going on now. There are some cars being permitted to clear away to allow more and more pedestrians to get over the Brooklyn Bridge.
Is there any vehicular traffic on the bridge, Ollie?
There's just a little bit coming off on the side ramps. The south ramp has some traffic on it, but that's going very, very slowly. The pedestrians have taken over the entire bridge, almost the entire bridge. Now, as far as the first blast is concerned, I did hear some kind of a scream. Just a split second before that tremendous blast. And I did not know it was an aircraft. I did not know what it was. But you were able to confirm what happened with the second explosion in the second tower.
Ollie, let me just interrupt you for a second, if I may. We are told now that the White House has been threatened with a terrorist attack. Maybe some sort of a verbal threat, I don't know, but one would assume that the White House, given the fact that the Pentagon was under attack and the World Trade Center was under attack, this country is under attack by terrorists, both here in New York and in Washington. And just moments ago, the President of the United States went in before the nation to make this announcement. I understand we're going to rerun the bite of the president. Okay, here it is.
Today we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. I have spoken to the Vice President, to the Governor of New York, to the Director of the FBI, and have ordered that the full resources of the federal government go to help the victims and their families, and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act. Terrorism against our nation will not stand. And now, if you join me in a moment of silence.
All right, that was the president just a few minutes ago announcing that the full resources of the government would be put to help the victims of these tragedies and to find out who did it. And I'm also told now that the FAA has announced from Washington that no aircraft anywhere in the country is being allowed to take off. That's from the FAA, because apparently these 2 planes that smashed into the World Trade Center, and perhaps the one in the Pentagon as well, were hijacked commercial jets from various airports. So, as a result of that, the FAA has announced that no aircraft is being allowed to take off anywhere in the country.
All right, Jim, we do have someone who has just joined us on the set here. His name is Joseph Jaffe. And Mr. Jaffe, where are you from?
Decision Strategies, Fairfax. We're an investigative consulting and security firm.
All right.
What do you make of this?
Well, it's a tragedy, and it appears, if it didn't appear first from the first plane, after the second plane, and now the one at the Pentagon, that there's a well-coordinated effort afoot to bring terrorism to the United States.
What could have been done, if anything, to prevent this kind of an attack?
At this juncture, it's very hard to guess. We have a country that's wide open. We have borders that are wide open. We have freedoms that are wide open. And over the past 25 and 30 years, some of us have been following terrorism for at least that long. Our country does not generally get into the investigation of terrorism the way it ought to, in terms of being the state that could prevent it. We value our freedom more, so there's very little you can do to take a person who's bent on killing himself or herself from taking over a plane. I mean, of course, you could enforce measures and be very strict on who gets onto what planes and how that would work. But that isn't going to work in this country.
I'm told, Mr. Jaffe, that we have is it a picture of the Pentagon? Let's just take this is a picture of the central military headquarters of our country, the Pentagon of the United States.
Apparently the president...
This is the president's plane taking off from Florida, where he had been heading back to Washington to deal with the emergency. Mr. Jaffe, Dave, you had a question?
Well, 2 things. Number one, I was going to ask Mr. Jaffe, you said you're either based out of Fairfax or your company is down...
we have our company's in New York and in Falls Church, Virginia.
Okay, Falls Church, Virginia. You would very well know, as anyone who flies into the Washington area, what's stunning about the Pentagon attack.
All right, let's go back to Michelle Charlesworth now on West Side Highway. Can you hear us now, Michelle?
Are there any people on board?
Michelle?
We've been watching this unfold. We came down here about 30 minutes ago. We're on the West Side Highway, just north of Canal Street. Now, about 45 minutes ago, the city shut down the southbound lanes of the West Side Highway so that emergency crews only, fire trucks, NYPD trucks, could get down here. I don't know if we can swing over and show as this aftermath unfolds and the plumes of smoke behind me billow from the World Trade Center. People are literally getting away the only way they can, on foot. People have been walking by here with their hands over their mouths and screaming at each other to try to borrow cell phones, but there's no way to get away from here because the bridges and tunnels have been closed. They've been asking me whether or not the Hudson, whether there was any way to get out of the city, and of course there is some concern as to what could be in the smoke. That's the question most of the people have been asking me. what could possibly be in the smoke. They're listening to their radios. President Bush, of course, saying that this is apparently a terrorist attack on our country, and now the latest word from Washington that possibly the Pentagon has been hit by the same kind of attack. There have been some witnesses actually who came by here who said that it was definitely one plane and then another within minutes of each other hitting the World Trade Center towers, the North Tower, then the South Tower, and that from what they could see, this was definitely no accident. In the words of President Bush again, apparently a terrorist attack on our country. And I don't know if we can show more and more ambulances moving all the way down the south side of the West Side Highway. This has been closed now for about an hour. Of course, this whole thing unfolding about an hour ago, not even an hour ago. But I will continue to let you know what's going on here. We are again just north of Canal Street on the West Side Highway. The only way people are moving out of here is to walk. You can probably see people carrying their briefcases walking by me. We're live on the West Side Highway. Michelle Charles with ABC News. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. We know that Bellevue Hospital, Celeste Ford told us Bellevue Hospital has been confirmed, is the triage center. It is where they are taking many of the folks admitted. Now, I know there are a lot of folks who have relatives. Only 4 people right now have been admitted. Take that for however that is. If we could also send word to one of our producers there too. The flight from Boston, how many people were on board that flight?
Find out
how many folks were on board that flight as well.
All right, let's go to David Usher. Of course, we talked about, he's in our newsroom, we talked about all the airports across the country being shut down, but you've gotten word of other closings, Dave?
Yeah, Lori, we're trying to diffuse through the information that's coming into the newsroom. Some of it you've already reported, but essentially the government officials are trying to go into defensive mode now until they figure out exactly what's happening. And as Jim Dolan explained, they are trying to limit the vulnerability of other places. The Hudson River crossings have been closed, and that, as you can imagine, is creating a bit of commuter chaos. This is a live picture now from the GW Bridge. New Jersey officials say they've gone into an alert mode. They're shutting these down, all of the Hudson River crossings as well. You've already mentioned the airports, not only here in New York City, but across the entire country.
Okay, we have another reporter out on the street, Walter Perez. Can you hear us, Walter?
Here we are about 2 blocks away from... Okay, 2 blocks away from where the whole thing happened, and this entire area has been cordoned off, and people that have been working in nearby buildings have been told to evacuate. That's what this mass exodus is to my left-hand side. To my right, we have 2 witnesses, and as we speak with you two, we're going to pan up and show a shot of what we see from this vantage point. First, Marna Ringel, and Marna, you work across the street. Tell me exactly what you saw on the street, and as you looked up what you saw, because you said you saw the second one, am I correct?
No, I didn't see the second one. I actually was coming out of the building, and there was maybe about 30 or 40 people at the bottom of One World Financial covered in blood. I did not expect that at all, and I work for Lehman in One right here, and a gentleman that I work with was on the telephone. He said, "What was that?" I said, he thought it was thunder. I looked over, screamed, "It's a bomb," because I saw a piece of the building flow down, and I think I scared my entire floor because I can scream pretty loud, and it was pretty bad.
Now, you mentioned that you saw people on the road outside of the building. Explain that scene.
I saw there's maybe about 30 or 40 people covered with bandages and blood. It looks like a lot of them were either on the floor of one of the exchanges. There's actually, oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
We're not sure exactly what happened, but it was another explosion on the far side of one of the buildings from where we're standing. The reverberation and another explosion on the right-hand side. Another building has gone up on the right-hand side of the road. People are now running down the street. We're not sure if that was another explosion or if that was advanced debris. Joining me also is Jim Plant. Jim, you're also a witness of what happened. Tell me exactly what you saw from your vantage point across the street.
I was just across Liberty and West here, and I saw the second plane hit the Tower 2. Looked like a 737. It hit a glancing blow, didn't hit it direct. I don't know where the rest of the plane went. But it went in, fireball came out, and it hit lower than the first plane, which hit the upper floors.
Jim, thank you very much. At this point, as you can tell, there's absolute pandemonium in this area because of what had just happened. Exactly what, I can't confirm, but on the far side of the building, there seemed to be another explosion, and also on the right-hand side, there was also another explosion. We're not sure if that was extra reverberation from what happened at the World Trade Center, or if that was an added explosion. At this point, there's a lot of smoke, massive plumes of smoke falling from the building across the street. People that were running down the street or walking are now running away. We don't have any information as far as what the most recent reverberations were, but from 2 blocks away, you could feel what happened. We'll get more information and pass it along to you.
a few minutes ago, indicating that they're making some progress in putting those flames out. But now there seems to be a lot of smoke coming from the lower portion of the World Trade Center. And again, we had a report.
A new black smoke.
We had a report indicating that that there was an explosion on the lower floors now.
We were
Perhaps
talking.
we can't communicate with Dick Oliver. He's down somewhere in that area, but the only audio contact we have with him is by cell telephone, and we're having problems with those as well. So there's a live picture. All right, Brandy, are you on the phone?
I am, sir.
Brandy, where are you now?
I am in Clinton Hill, Brooklyn. I live on the 15th floor.
Yeah.
I have a terrace that faces the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
If I am home and all of the lights are on, if one floor turns out all of their lights, I can see that one floor turn out. I can see everything. I was in my bed this morning. My whole building shook. I got up, looked to see what was going on. Everything was up in flames. 10 minutes later, not literally, the other plane, I swear to you, deliberately went into the next World Trade Center building. Deliberately. There was no mistake about it. It deliberately went in there. I have a clear view of everything. Just 2 seconds ago, half of the building just fell out. There's nothing but white smoke. I can no longer see the World Trade Center now. It's all up in smoke. The smoke is on my terrace. That's how close I am. My mom is coughing because the smoke is on my terrace.
And you're across the bay in Brooklyn.
I'm across the bay in Brooklyn. I can see everything. We're in Clinton Hill, Brooklyn. This is the scariest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. It was like television.
Now, when you say it seemed as if the side had fallen off the building.
The side of the building has fallen out. It seemed like there was another explosion. I heard something go boom, and everything just like fell out.
Is that a third explosion now?
I don't know if it was the third explosion or was it from the fire. The fire.
Now you saw you heard the first explosion, and you saw the second plane go in.
I saw the second plane go in, and it was actual deliberate. There was no way as a pilot that you would not drive around that smoke.
Brandy, after you saw that second plane hit deliberately, as you say, the side of the World Trade Center, then you heard a third explosion?
Then I heard, not necessarily a third explosion, just 10 minutes ago, like a whole side of the building just fell out.
I see.
And I could hear like the rumble, the crash of all the windows coming down.
So that could indicate some sort of a weakness, the structure of the building weakened.
I can't even see the World Trade Center building.
It's too much covered with smoke.
It's too much covered with smoke.
I see. Well,
I mean, the smoke is coming on my terrace. That's how much smoke it is.
I see, Brandy. Thank you very much. I'm sure it was a harrowing experience for you, so thank you for sharing your experiences with us. I appreciate it. Mr. Jaffe, again, we're talking, your firm again is?
Decision Strategies, Fairfax.
Decision Strategies. As we look at a picture of the smoke coming from the Pentagon building in Washington, we now head into perhaps a new era in this country as far as protection against terrorist activity is concerned. Do you think that's a fair statement?
I think we're going to have a very heightened awareness. I think we have to in terms of protecting the things that are basic to us. I think we have to be careful, though, not to overdo it to the point that we wind up compromising completely what we've come to expect. If we overreact and take away the basic liberties we need, we'll have a problem. On the other hand, we can be very, very concerned, very concise, and do what we need to do and still be respectful of what the country stands for. But the most important piece, I think.
Okay, I'm sorry for interrupting you all the time, but what we heard from Brandy just a few minutes ago apparently has now been confirmed that a portion of the side of the World Trade Center has indeed collapsed. Now, whether that's just the outer wall or whether that goes right into the offices, I don't know. But you're looking at a live picture there, and smoke is emanating from the entire building. And we had Brandy on the phone just a short time ago from Brooklyn, and she said that she heard some sort of, she didn't know whether it was an explosion or not, but certainly a very loud sound. And then the side of the building, she said, just gave way. And you see all the smoke now. She says from her vantage point in Brooklyn, all she can see is smoke. Brandy, are you still with us by any chance? Yeah, apparently, she's. she's, we're joined by Rosanna Scotto. Good morning, Rosanna.
Morning, Jim. You know, we knew we were going to have a big day today with the primaries. That has obviously taken a backseat right now. What we are hearing is the Board of Elections are meeting right now to determine whether to call off the primary today. And this is unprecedented. This has never happened. Now, if it was a general election, there is stipulations in the charter which say some kind of act of that we don't know of in nature, you can call it off. But for a primary, there's nothing in the charter that says you can call it off. But obviously, there are a lot of polling stations down in that area of the World Trade Center, and if not inside the Trade Center, and obviously those are closed right now. So we will know in the next hour or so whether the primary has been postponed for a day or so.
Yeah, I don't see how they could go forward with it.
No, not at all, because it lost its
that would be a long shot. And certainly only from the standpoint of, if not from the standpoint of polling places being closed, but from people losing interest in an election or in the face of an overwhelming tragedy.
I just left my home to come here, and it's really kind of scary, because all you hear are the constant screams of ambulances and fire trucks racing through the street. Anybody, you know, I was walking trying to get to a bus or a taxi or anything to get here, and all anybody could talk about was, what's going on? Do you have any information? It is the talk of the town right now, and rightly so. My husband, as you know, works down near the World Trade Center. He called me a little after 9 o'clock this morning. He had just gotten into his building. He was walking up the steps, and he heard a loud bang. He said it felt like an earthquake, and all of a sudden, he said it looked like confetti coming from the sky. Now, he's a few blocks away, and he didn't know what it was. He went up into his office. He has a clear view of the World Trade Center from there, and he claims he saw either people falling out of the building or jumping out of the building this morning. And my husband is pretty unflappable. He's an attorney. He was shaken up this morning.
Excuse me 1 second, Rosanna, because I think we're about to see a picture of, this is a few moments ago. Watch this. This is the side of the building just collapsing. There you see. There you see. Now, whether that is the result of just further weakening of the structure of the building, or whether that's yet another terrorist attack, I don't know. I would imagine the former, that the building structure just weakens to the point where the wall, no longer able to sustain the weight, just caved. But that was the east side of the north tower of the World Trade Center caving in. And just a few moments ago, we had a woman named Brandy on the phone, and she told us it was another loud roar, and she told us also, this is Kai, can you hear me? Kai, tell us what we're looking at here. These are fighter jets, one would presume, to prevent any further attacks by planes. If they see any plane coming now, it better not be an innocent commercial flight, because I should imagine those fighter jets are up there to intercept and shoot down any plane that comes their way.
No, I think everything has been grounded.
That's
by
right. All the airports across the country have been closed. And I heard that right now they're inspecting, and really inspecting, Air Force One, because it's been around this morning, and before the president gets on it, they want to make sure that it's a safe plane to get on.
Okay.
Okay.
We have reporters on the ground. One of them is Michelle Charlesworth, who you heard from just a few moments ago. Michelle, where are you, and what do you see?
I'm not going to be able to communicate with you. You'll be able to hear me, but I can't hear you. We're on the West Side Highway, and I am sad to report that we actually watched the entire South Tower of the World Trade Center come down, screams from everyone on the sidewalks as they thought that perhaps another plane had slammed into the side of these buildings. We're hearing late reports that there might be fighters, U.S. fighters in the air, patrolling the area, of course, the bridges and the tunnels. That's a confirmation. There's one right above me. Bridges and tunnels have been shut down. The only way to leave the city at this point is on foot, and everyone from the World Trade Center area has been moving through here. I can only hope that people got out of that area. We're pointing up to show the fighters right now. I can only hope that people got out of the area on the sidewalks below the South Tower before it came tumbling down. but it literally exploded and came down as though it had been hit. Plumes of smoke moving out into the harbor. Can we see how many fighters there are up there?
One fighter.
One fighter. As far as we know, there is nothing left of the South Tower of the World Trade Center. There were reports elevators weren't working. Obviously no way to get out of the building aside from the stairway. You can see the smoke all over this area, and to give you some idea where I am, I'm approximately, what, 20, 30 blocks from where this latest explosion just happened. The West Side Highway southbound has been filled with emergency vehicles. It's shut off except for NYPD vehicles and fire trucks. Again, the South Tower of the World Trade Center just coming down right in front of us. We watched it happen just moments ago and actually got video of it, so we'll be showing you that. Reporting live on the West Side Highway in Manhattan, Michelle Charlesworth, ABC 7 Eyewitness
You
News.
sit here and you look at this, and as journalists, you are not supposed to inject any of your personal feelings. But I'm sitting here, I'm looking at this, and I'm mad as hell. I really am. I am so angry that something like this could take place in our country.
Disrupt our lives, yeah.
Well, I think it's also frightening. I mean, let's face it, we're journalists, but we also live in this city.
Thank you.
We have children that we're raising in this city, so we have concerns just like everybody else, and we want to keep this place safe. And who would think in our lifetime that we would see something like this?
Should we have been aware of this, Mr. Jaffe? Should we have been some inkling? Because apparently we got blindsided here.
I would think, and the government has various motives, and each of the various pieces of the government have other intelligence sources, but I would hope that we would be on top of some of this. And in years past, sometimes we weren't, sometimes we weren't, but at least we had an inkling. It seems to me one of the things we have to do is to increase our intelligence gathering faculties domestically as well as overseas, especially domestically. And that may frighten some people because they don't want to have their rights compromised. On the other hand, we have to give up something in order to be safe. To the extent that they've accomplished our becoming fearful and you becoming angry, they've created a situation we have to rectify, and we have to do it quickly.
Do you think the FBI is going to come under a lot of fire for letting something like this slip? This obviously seems like a well-planned attack on New York and Washington, and we don't know.
Allow me to interrupt you, please. This is Rick Leventhal with Fox News Channel.
The smoke is obviously cleared somewhat. Ma'am, she's with DCPI. Can you talk to us for just a second? Bring us up to speed. Obviously, people have their hands full out here. It's not easy getting anyone to talk. Yeah, tell me where you were. What happened? What did you see? What did you hear?
First, I went on Canal Street. I saw the fire. I saw the two buildings. I think it was a bomb because it's two of them. Anyway, when I got there, I tried to save people because I'm a doctor. When I tried to save people, the moment we heard a big explosion coming down, everything just went black. Everything came down, glass started popping. People got hurt. Stuff went on top of them, and it was a big explosion. And everything got dark, real dark, like snow. You can see behind me. Oh, this is not snow. This is all from the building. It was a terrible nightmare.
Where exactly were you standing when this happened?
I was standing right in front of the World Trade Center.
So you were down the block here?
Right there in the middle. Right, yeah.
Did you get hurt at all?
No, not me.
Did you see anyone around you getting caught up in it?
Yeah, I was with the firemen. We got hurt. We all went inside to this dark. We was inside the building when everything happened, but we came out alive.
What's your name?
My name is Dr. Angel.
Were you able to assist anyone before this happened?
Yes, I did. I help a lot of patients. A lot of them.
Well, there are a lot more people that need help now.
So
if you're capable, maybe you should...
yes, I'm going to go back. I lost my ID, but I try to go back.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks a lot for talking to us. We, can you talk to us for a second? Jesus, just... Huh?
I saw a Trade Center down.
Well, tell me what you saw.
All right, I was coming down 6th Avenue, running down to meet this truck.
Pat Muskoff,
Fox
News engineer. Go ahead. Go ahead. Start again.
I'm coming down 6th Avenue. All the people traffic was running up. And I'm looking up, I'm trying to call the station, trying to find where we are. And I look up and the tower just starts crumbling down. And everybody in the street just stops and started crying and bawling. And I'm standing next to a fireman, he said, yeah, they just bombed the Pentagon too. So that's basically where I saw. Then I came running down here. Traffic's not allowed past Warren Street. And you see what's here.
Do you know which of the two towers?
The one without the main antenna on it. The second one that was hit.
That's the further south? This more southerly tower?
I think it's Tower 1. I'm not too sure the exact.
And you actually saw it from the top down
I saw it come tumbling. It came sideways like this. It just collapsed in on top of itself. It was amazing, but very upsetting to watch the whole thing come tumbling down. So we all thought it was another explosion, and we looked up, instead of being two, there's one.
Just an unbelievable scene here. It's almost difficult to describe what's going on here. It's unbelievable. You can see that we have One World Trade Center completely engulfed in flames. The upper floor is completely engulfed in flames. Two World Trade Center has collapsed. It collapsed, I guess, about 15 minutes or so ago. We had two planes, as you've been hearing. One plane hit One World Trade a short time ago. I guess it's going back about 45 minutes to maybe to an hour or so ago. And then shortly after that, another plane. We actually witnessed the plane coming up the East River, and it seemed to be getting dangerously close to World Trade, and we thought that it was going to hit, and it did in fact hit. We saw the explosion and all of the debris flowing down toward the lower Manhattan there, and it's just incredible how right now what we see on the ground down here is that the entire area of lower Manhattan right now is completely engulfed in a big black cloud of smoke. Now we did have some people down there that were shooting some tape for us. They said that the entire area is completely engulfed in smoke right now. It's very, very difficult to see at this point. And right now our concerns in terms of what we're doing up here is that the area, as we understand it, has been sealed off. The airspace has been sealed off. So they are not allowing people to come in and out of the airspace at this point. We are able to stay here right now, but no commercial traffic is being allowed to exit or enter the airspace right now. And we did hear some reports that there were hundreds of people. We did hear reports that there were hundreds of people, if not more, on the ground that were injured. There are obviously numerous casualties involved in all of this. Now, in terms of flying right now, our concern right now is just basically keep an eye out for any planes, any suspicious planes that enter the airspace. Right now, by definition, any plane that we see enter the airspace, if it's not an American fighter jet, which we have seen, or if it's not a news helicopter or a police helicopter, is suspicious at this point, and we need to get out of their way.
77 floor in One World Trade. You were in the building? Yes.
We did not see the debris hit anything specific on the ground because we are being kept at a distance right now. We're being kept at 3-4 miles away. Actually, I'm being told now by my pilot we're being kept at a minimum of 5 mile radius of the World Trade Center. That is for our own safety and also for the safety of the people on the ground. The debris, it's very, very difficult to determine which way the debris fell. It may have fallen toward the east, but I'm really not sure at this point which way the building collapsed. It was very difficult to see. It kind of erupted in a big cloud of dust and smoke at this point, so it was very difficult to see which way the debris fell, but it did appear that it may have fallen over toward the east side of the island. You can see it's an incredible scene here. It's almost the entire southern tip of Manhattan completely engulfed in smoke at this point. And we are told that it is virtually impossible to see down there. I can only imagine what emergency crews are going through at this point, not being able to see, trying to fight a fire. Right now it's just kind of a moot point. Basically, I would think that right now the priority is just to preserve life at this point. The fire continues to burn at the top of One World Trade. Two World Trade, as I told you a little bit earlier, collapsed, and it appeared as though it was collapsing over toward the east side of the island, but that has not been confirmed. I can't be sure of that completely. But just an incredible scene out here. It's really almost difficult to describe.
Again, the words of Kai Simonson, who is up in the air in Chapter 5. He was up in the air with his camera focused on the building when the second plane rammed into the World Trade Center. And it must have been quite a sight for him and quite an experience.
So Jim,
I'm told Mario Bosques, excuse me, Rosanna, but I'm told Mario Bosques is on the phone from Beth Israel Hospital. Mario?
Hello, Jim. I'm at Beth Israel Medical Center, as you said, in downtown Manhattan. On the east side, along with Bellevue Medical Center, has become a staging area to receive the injured, the victims from, of course, the World Trade Center situation, the tragedy that took place there. We are seeing many ambulances pulling up with people coming on wheelchairs and stretchers, bandaged about the head and arms and legs. They don't appear at this point to be major injuries, but they appear to be stunned as they're taken out of the hospital, out of the ambulance into the hospital. We understand Bellevue at this point is also receiving people, doing triage there as well. Again, Beth Israel and Bellevue taking in victims apparently from the World Trade Center. In addition, Jim, people on the streets, I can tell you, along First Avenue walking around totally stunned. The TV sets in some shops are turned on loud, pointed out toward the streets as people come out of their apartments to watch these developments as they unfold. But again, at Beth Israel, they have many ambulances that are standing by to go to the area. We also understand Beekman Hospital is where many of the injured. I was running my way there to try to get coverage there when I stopped at Beth Israel to get the situation here. And as you might imagine, the medical personnel are running around the area preparing to take in more victims.
I'm sure they will. By the way, I should tell the viewers, Mario, that you're looking at the picture on Fox News Channel. They have a reporter on the ground. Perhaps we could listen to that interview.
It's in the World Financial Center. Right across the street. World Financial Center is right across the street from the Marriott Hotel. And when we were walking by, you look at the Marriott Hotel, I don't even think it's there anymore.
So, well, I don't know what else to ask you. I mean, it's just an incredible story. It's just horrible.
It's an absolute shame.
Do you think you know people who were on the floors that were hit?
You just pray when they evacuated people. Unfortunately, they evacuated people both sides of the World Financial Center. I don't know if if you're talking talking about the other side. We were by the water, by the ferries and Moran's in that area. You just hope the people on the other side, they've actually evacuated them out, and that's the fear, I guess, with this building here. You just see the fire, like 20 stories. You're worried about the building giving out, and it did.
How far away from the building were you when it collapsed?
I was right by where the people get on for the ferry, right next to Moran's, to the right of Moran's.
So 10 blocks, 20 blocks?
10 blocks away, and then there was a decent crowd, and that's when everyone just dispersed.
Thanks for talking to us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. What's your name?
All right, Rick Leventhal.
Where are you from?
With Fox News Channel.
As Rick Leventhal continues to report from the streets of Manhattan, as this devastation occurs and continues to unfold, and you can see on the right-hand side of your screen, there is only one.
Can they hear?
There you're listening to the Fox News Channel, their coverage of the catastrophe. But I must say, and I hate to say this, but we had eyewitness reports earlier on that the World Trade Center being 110 stories high, there were people who were falling from the windows and who were jumping. Let's listen to this interview from Rick Leventhal.
Thought the building was going to topple over. It was going so.
Well, one of them did.
One of them did. We were in Tower 1. We made it out.
Well, you're a lucky man.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thanks.
All right. Take care.
Clearly, this is a nationwide catastrophe, but folks...
Rick Leventhal talking to several eyewitnesses down there. That looks like another gentleman.
Call your loved ones. If you have any other way, perhaps email. If you have any other way of contacting your
we're not listening to the interview on Fox News Channel, so we'll come back.
James, can I just step in 1 second? We do have reports that the State Department has been hit.
So virtually every important office building in Washington State, Treasury, too late for the Pentagon because the attack has already hit there, but that is being evacuated as well.
And we should mention that the New York City Fire Department is appealing to anyone who's off duty or on vacation. Please, if you're a fire person, please report to work immediately. They need your help. Obviously, after we saw the planes hit the building, we kind of thought everything was over. It's not over. The one tower has collapsed. People on the ground are getting hurt, if not killed. The story just seems not to be anywhere near ending.
Well, listen to this.
Flying out of the sky and you can't do nothing about it. You tell me. You tell me what you think. I mean, my heart's in my mouth. I mean, I pray for these people. There's no words to describe what's going on out there. I mean, you see bodies just coming a half hour later, still coming out of the goddamn sky. Devastating. Devastating. I can't imagine anything worse than this. There's got to be... I can't imagine. Everybody on the plane must have died. The floor, I got friends of mine on 104th floor, friends on other buildings. I just spoke to one of my friends a half hour prior to that, getting ready to go upstairs to go to work. It's devastating. I mean, I've seen a lot of construction accidents. I've seen a lot of bad things happen. Never seen a jet fall out of the sky into a building, no less once, but twice. Devastating.
I want to bring into the conversation.
We'll just add to what that gentleman said, that there is reason to feel that way, because he mentioned that the plane must have been fully occupied. We're told that there were 158 passengers and a crew of 9 or 10 aboard that plane, so that's just for openers, a number of people killed. And again, we've had eyewitnesses telling us that people were falling from the upper floors, were jumping out the upper floors in apparent panic. So it is, by any stretch of the imagination, a terrible, terrible tragedy. We're also told that an organization that calls itself the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine is claiming responsibility.
Now, do you wonder if they have any connection to Osama bin Laden? I've heard that they don't.
I don't know.
I don't know
I've never
if
heard
that's
of that
been
outfit
confirmed.
before.
Right.
Have you heard?
I've never heard of that outfit before either, but I wonder if they have any...
Front for, yes.
Right.
No, the name is familiar. I have heard the name mentioned before.
But I believe they don't have any connection to Osama bin Laden. But you know what? This is all unconfirmed right now. I think what goes through your mind is, how did this slip past the FBI? How did this slip past the FBI? With all these different attacks in 2 different states.
As you can imagine, Ralph, as you can imagine, there's a pretty frenzied scene out here just a few moments ago. I'd say about 20 minutes ago. We're not sure exactly what it was. We have not confirmed it, but something either exploded or fell off the side of the one building that was attacked and caused a massive plume of smoke. As we turn left, you can see there's a trucks go by that they are spitting off smoke. These were the emergency trucks and ambulances that were near the building at the time that had happened. At that point, it wasn't so much of a frenzied scenario because people were walking away from the building. This entire region has been cordoned off, and people who are working in nearby buildings were told to leave and evacuate the area for obvious reasons, for safety concerns. When that second plume of smoke came up from the ground area, people started running. People were covered in soot. There were people with blood on their shirts, rips in their shirts, and at this point, looking up at the top of the building, at a rate of about 1 every 5 minutes, you see people that are jumping from the top of the building. It is an absolutely harrowing scene at this point. Police officials told us to evacuate the area that we were in. We moved about 2 blocks further, but the scene is very, very similar. Plumes of smoke all around the area, and people not exactly sure what's going on. All the telephone lines are jammed up as people are trying to communicate, not just police to other people, but folks who saw what happened, trying to communicate loved ones and let them know that they're safe. So it's a very hectic situation at this point. As we gather more information and we're sure we're settled where we're supposed to stop, we'll get back to you, because at this point, police are still not sure where we should be. And as you can see, a lot of police activity. They're trying to move the media to a safe area so we can do proper reporting and let everybody know exactly what's going on. For now, back to you.
Walter, have they given you any indication? I'm sorry, he can't hear me. All right. We simply do not know who has been hurt and what casualties might have occurred, which is the information that we are. I want you to take a look at what's happening right now. That is a live picture.
That's a live picture too. That's World Trade Center 2 has just collapsed.
That's the second of the towers to collapse.
We are now looking at
goodness,
the
look at
collapse
the
of the second of the World Trade Towers. World Trade Center towers. Again, this is something that we never dreamed we would witness in our lifetime. Let us tell you that to come into the city right now,
everybody out of that area,
because the bridges, the tunnels shut down, subway lines, trains pretty much closed. The New York Stock Exchange.
Just a moment ago, the entire top of the building collapsed. You can see a massive plume of smoke. People are running away from the area. There are firefighters and there are police trying to evacuate the area as quickly as possible. People who are near the area are in an absolute frenzied situation. The entire top of the building just collapsed. You can see the plume of smoke is coming in our direction. Let's get out of here, Ralph. We're going to leave because the smoke is coming right at us.
Obviously, this is a devastating
They're
moment
gone. Look
in
at
our
that.
history.
They're gone. The World Trade Center is no more.
The world forever erased from our memory.
No, I think it will always be in our memory, that's for sure, but definitely erased from our skies. This is just unbelievable.
A live picture from Chopper 5 showing the collapse of the World Trade Center.
What do we do now? Mr. Jaffe, right? But what do we do now? You said I shouldn't be angry, and maybe I shouldn't, but I am very, very angry by this, and we shouldn't let it shut us down.
No.
But this is a tremendous impact on our lives. Where do we go from here? What should we do? How do we respond?
I think we take a very deliberate course of action, which may take a week, a month, a year, where we start to put ourselves on track to understand that we are the target in a war and we have to fight it, which means we have to make sacrifices to protect ourselves while we go on. And we have to dedicate some resources that we haven't so that this type of thing doesn't.
This picture is surreal. It almost looks like we're frozen in time.
This is what we have dreaded forever. We went through 40 years after the war with our not having any real domestic violence. And now it's caught us. And now we have to put ourselves in a position.
And I understand, Mr. Jaffe, that this tragedy has not ended yet, because the Capitol Police in Washington are now reporting that a plane has been hijacked, and they fear it is heading toward the Capitol building in Washington, which, as we have reported, has been evacuated, but yet another clear symbol of our country and our government and our way of life.
You also have to wonder all the police personnel and fire department who were called to Lower Manhattan to help the people in the Trade Center. Let's hope they're okay now, too, with this collapse of the tower.
Yes, indeed. There were, I'm sure, plenty of rescue workers who were in and around that building. And with that collapse, I'm sure...
What about the command center?
More
the command center.
The command center is, I think, in Tower 5 of the World Trade Center. And there's no way of telling whether that's intact. One would suspect that looking at that picture there, that live picture, that the command center is not in very good shape either.
And you have to wonder just how far this reached. I mean, you're talking about Wall Street is nearby, you know, a place that the world looks to.
The gentleman who said that the Marriott didn't appear to be there.
True, yeah. Well, his vantage point was around by the financial center there, which is ironically built on the. They're talking to me in my ear. All right, this is we have tape, I understand, a few minutes ago. This is the collapse as viewed from the ground. That picture just a few moments ago, you heard the people reacting in terror and horror as the World Trade Center simply collapsed. And apparently it is not over. Again, to repeat, we have a report from the Capitol Police that another plane has been hijacked, and they are afraid that that plane is heading for the Capitol building, which, along with any other important building in Washington, has been evacuated. And just to tell you, if you are outside the island of Manhattan, don't try to come in today. There's no way you can get in, and people are streaming out as quickly as possible.
Well, I believe bridges and tunnels have all been closed, and certainly any subway station that goes through the World Trade Center.
Does that mean, as well, I would guess that anybody who is in Manhattan now
will be walking, if they can.
Dick Oliver reported from near the Brooklyn Bridge before that that people were streaming across the bridge toward Brooklyn, but nobody coming back in.
I'm surprised that the Brooklyn Bridge has not been closed.
I think
well, maybe to pedestrians, you know.
I'm sure that they closed the Midtown Tunnel, and they closed the other bridges across the East River, and of course the Hudson River crossings as well. And again, to repeat, there is no plane taking off in America today as a consequence of this unbelievable terrorist act. Mario Bosques has gone to Beth Israel Hospital downtown. Mario, are you there? All right, Mario, at Beth Israel Hospital downtown, where some of the victims of this terrible tragedy are being taken. You would imagine that, my goodness, the carnage must be unbelievable. Deaths may number in the thousands. I mean, the World Trade Center is the largest office building in this city, simply collapsed. You fear to even make an attempt at defining the enormity of this tragedy.
I mean, not only the people in the tower, the people on the ground now you have to be concerned about.
Sure, as you mentioned before, rescue workers there when the building collapsed some time after the initial crash.
And I know my husband, who was like a few blocks away from there, was told around 9:15 to evacuate. I hope he got the heck out of there and came home on his way home.
Rosanna, your colleague in the evening, John Rowland, is down in the newsroom right now talking about what's happening in Washington. John?
Yes, good afternoon, Jim. I'm trying to drink all of this in as you are. The enormity of this, of course, is beyond anybody in this business in this entire city. We've never in our lives seen anything even remotely approaching this. The latest information we have out of Washington from the State Department is that is being evacuated, the White House being evacuated. The Pentagon, of course, has already been attacked, as you've already been reporting. And there is word now that there is...
That was George W. Bush about an hour ago speaking from Longboat Key, Florida. He is en route to Washington, D.C. We're looking at some pictures on the ground, or we were, of apparently some of the victims. He is on the ground.
Quite extraordinary. These are the emergency workers who are coming back. It was just about 10 minutes ago that we described to you the possibility of that North Tower collapsing. About 5 minutes after we went off the air, it did collapse. Once again, we have no idea at this point the loss of life. I can only tell you there were hundreds of emergency workers down there, about 5 or 6 blocks. It took probably about, I would say, no more than 50 or 60 seconds for that dust cloud, dust and smoke, to literally make it the 5 or 6 blocks up here and begin to envelop us, at which point we started to move out of the way. There were literally dozens and dozens of firemen who were trying to run past us. In fact, our cameraman even put one of the captains in his car and drove him down to a command post. The people who you see here are pretty much all emergency workers. Many of them that I have seen in the last 2 to 3 minutes, quite frankly, are coming out of here. And remember this, these are professionals. They're coming out of there looking literally stunned, in shock, many of them, struggling for breath, obviously in serious distress. Breathing problems are the biggest problem for those who manage to make it safely out of that area down below us. You can't see much more than a block south of me right now, and the World Trade Center probably stands about 10 blocks south of where I am at this moment. And as you can see now, the dust is beginning to pick up here. It really depends on which way the wind blows as to whether or not we get heavy dust or not. But at this point, I can tell you that in the first few minutes, emergency workers were trying just basically to get out of there, to survive. You could see that written in their faces. The situation was so desperate, they just wanted to get out of there. Now, many of them are beginning to regroup. A couple of them asked me where their commander might be. They're trying to get together and go back in there and try to take care of the people who obviously are in serious trouble. There's no other way to describe it. The language here, at times, if I slip into language which seems a little melodramatic, forgive me, but this is a circumstance which is very, very difficult to describe in many ways without sounding melodramatic. Certainly in more than 20 years of covering horrific events, this is something that I've never seen before. As we say, the emergency workers now beginning to try to gather themselves. Over there you can see a police emergency service unit. They're trying basically now to reestablish some kind of a safe perimeter. And many of the emergency workers basically just happy to be alive. Certainly that picture tells it all. Many of them just happy to be alive at this point, having survived what is an extraordinary event, the collapse of 2 towers. As we said earlier in our report, 110 stories each. I will tell you that what fell, what I saw fall, had to be at least 40, 50 stories of that building at first. The skeleton was left at about, I would say, the 50 or 60th floor after the shell, after the structure of the building fell down. The skeleton, the steel skeleton, was literally sheaved off, and it took probably about another 30 seconds before the skeleton collapsed into the street. That was the last we saw of the World Trade Center.
and that was maybe 10 minutes ago when that final skeleton, the metal skeleton, steel skeleton, collapsed into the street.
That was NBC's Pat Dawson again. He's standing about 10 blocks from where the World Trade Center towers used to stand. You're looking at the collapse of one of those towers right now. We now have an AP News alert out of Pittsburgh. Officials at Somerset County Airport are confirming the crash of a large plane just north of the airport. That's about 80 miles southeast of Pittsburgh. Again, officials at Somerset County Airport confirmed the crash of a large plane north of that airport, which is located about 80 miles to the southeast of the city of Pittsburgh. We do not know whether that crash of that plane is related to what has become an obvious terrorist attack both here in New York City and in Washington, D.C. at the Pentagon.
Matt, we just got a late word that State Department security officials are denying those reports of a car bomb at the State Department. Betsy Stewart is at the C Street entrance and also says there's no sign of a car bomb. Betsy Stewart is one of our producers who's very familiar with the State Department. The building has been evacuated. Top officials are still believed to be in the operations center, however. Those are highly secured areas in terms of penetration physically and otherwise. Colin Powell, as Andrea reported earlier, was headed for Lima, Peru, but he's done a U-turn and he's coming back. The president is on his way back. He'll have a National Security Council meeting, we think probably at around 11:30 or perhaps around noon. That is likely to take place either at Andrews Air Force Base or in some more secure location. The White House has been evacuated, especially with this report of another plane going down, this time in the Pittsburgh area. There were planes in the air when the order went out that there would be no more takeoffs, so we don't know how much more damage these terrorists had in mind.
Let's go to Bob Hager, who is, of course, NBC's aviation expert. Bob, what kind of information are you getting from your sources?
Not a lot, Katie, from the FAA. For instance, they are not talking about any possible hijacks. And normally they can tell when there's a hijack in progress because the pilot, the original pilot of the plane, has various buttons that he can push that set off a code and tell them that there were hijacks. But maybe as a matter of security, they're not saying anything about that. They did stop all takeoffs in the U.S. at 9:25 this morning, and then for pilots that were in the air, the question came up what to do about them, and they were given some discretion to continue on to their destination, so long as it was not the New York or Washington area, or divert to an airport if that's what they wanted to do. I saw the blast at the Pentagon, not the blast take place, but moments after it. I'd been at National Airport trying to get up to New York, and you could see that smoke billowing out of the Pentagon. I can give you a little description of what it's like on the streets of Washington, because it was quite crowded trying to work my way back here to NBC. They have now given not only the White House and those key buildings like the U.S. Capitol, but at this point they've given all federal employees the word to leave their offices and get home.
Right.
So there are traffic jams in Washington.
Okay, Bob, I'm sure you're going to get more information for us momentarily, but first we want to go to Jim Miklaszewski at the Pentagon, who has some more information. Mick?
Katie, they're still clearing people away from the Pentagon. Still, security forces believe that there may be another incoming plane headed in the Washington region. But there was a very telling, dramatic moment just a second ago when a U.S. Air Force F-16 flew very low level, did a wide sweeping turn around the Pentagon and back over Washington. And as one Air Force officer standing near me said, "My God, they're now flying air cover over Washington." A very dramatic moment, a milestone in what Tom has already described as a declaration of war, terrorist war against the U.S.
Let's go back and show you the pictures of Lower Manhattan, where the situation only gets worse, not better. That is the financial district of the world. It's also a residential area and a great commercial area. Both Twin Trade Tower buildings now have collapsed onto the ground. There is an untold loss of life. The ripple effect goes on with all the smoke and dust that is spread out across that very densely populated area. It goes down below ground as well as in the high-rise buildings there. There are many residential structures in that area as well. Some heroic rescue workers were down there trying to get people out of the building when the first building came down, and then the second building did as well. Without any sound, and looking at this, there is a kind of a surreal quality. But that is the epicenter of a great, great national tragedy and a great loss of life. No question about it this morning.
We're talking about people who were hurt, perhaps killed in this blast. Many of them have been brought to area hospitals, including St. Vincent's Hospital. Bob Bazell is there. Bob, what's the latest?
Well, Katie, ambulances continue to stream in. Several New York City streets have been closed, major avenues have been closed off so that ambulances can continue to come in. In addition, the New York City subway system has now been closed down, and several buildings that were not involved in the World Trade Center area have been shut down, and people have been told to go home, but a lot of them are just wandering aimlessly on the street, many people openly weeping and hugging each other. This is clearly is a time that, as Tom described, is very close to the beginning of a war. And but the casualties do keep coming in: burns, smoke inhalation, very severe. And again, all the medical people that I've talked to say this is just the tip of the iceberg. We expect casualties to be coming in all through the night and way into tomorrow and beyond.
Bob, if you could just stand by for a moment, because we have this report from AP that I'm just simply going to read. A large plane crashed Tuesday morning just north of the Somerset County Airport, about 80 miles southeast of Pittsburgh. Airport officials said the plane, believed to be a Boeing 767, crashed around 10 a.m. about 8 miles east of Jennerstown, according to County 911 dispatchers, WPXI-TV reported. The crash came the same morning that terrorists crashed 2 planes into the World Trade Center in New York City, and the twin 110-story towers collapsed. Explosions also rocked the Pentagon and the State Department, although that was refuted moments ago, and spread fear across the nation. There was no other immediate details on the Pennsylvania crash, and it was not clear whether the crash was related to the others. Again, that was a report, a bulletin that was just issued by the Associated Press.
You know what is so stunning about all of this, Matt and Katie, is that there has been no indication whatsoever that this very carefully coordinated massive attack was going to occur. There's been a complete intelligence failure here. And there will be, obviously, down the road, a price to pay for that.
Well, that's actually not all that surprising, Tom, because we've often talked in the past following every terrorist event about how vulnerable the United States is, and many terrorist experts say how unprepared they are. And the question, of course, is, can you ever prepare for an attack like this?
Well, that's true, but we also have people out there who are in listening posts, and we've penetrated these kinds of organizations, but to have this kind of an attack, this sophisticated, this efficient, striking at the heart of the nation's capital, striking at the heart of New York City, now, and if this is true that this plane went down as a result of this attack, we don't know whether it's the end of it. Right. This is a massively well-coordinated attack of some kind that is nothing short but of a declaration of war on this country.
And terrorist experts are now saying, and intelligence experts are now saying, that there are very short or very few number of terrorist groups that are capable of this kind of planning, and a couple of names come to mind, and I'm not going to throw them out now because we certainly don't have any reports. Before I go to Jamie Gangel, I just want to say that some of the descriptions coming from eyewitnesses in Lower Manhattan of these explosions occurring are chilling. One man talked about getting off a PATH train, that's a subway train, here in Lower Manhattan, and looking up at the building after the first explosion and seeing people jump out of the windows. We have no idea how high up, but hearing people on the ground scream each time another person jumped out of a window attempting to get to safety. And then when the second explosion occurred, he felt the heat of the explosion on the back of his neck. Jamie Gangel is our national correspondent. She's joining us now on the phone. Jamie?
Matt, you know, speaking of those intelligence officials that you were just mentioning, now finally we can no longer reach on the phone anyone at the CIA. Apparently the CIA has been evacuated. We know the National Security Agency, which is the electronic eavesdropping agency, which is south of Baltimore near Fort Meade, Maryland, that they have been shut down. What we're hearing from both places is that all non-essential personnel have been told to leave. And I can only imagine that probably they are trying to move some of their operations out